Today we are back at our house working on this project. Zeb has a ton of stuff to do in the garage, so we decided to start it at home.
To get started, we just cleaned it with soap and water and then rinsed it off, and it should be ready to paint. We're not going to sand it or do anything to it. We're just going to take the hardware off and get started.
We're going to be doing a French country paint finish, but the very first step is going to be doing a base coat of white swan. We're starting off with DIY White Swan. I'm pouring it on a plate. I'm going to be using the Turquoise Iris VIP, and it needs a bigger surface to get the paint on there. Once you load your brush up with paint, it makes it a lot easier to base coat. And you can really just get a ton of surface area all at one time. This doesn't work on detail spots, but it will get the base coat on there.
That's what the little brush is for, the details.
We're going to bring the joy. Well, I could probably do that, but like around the feet and stuff.
Yeah, I'll get the feet too. I'm just going to make sure I get down in these little cracks real nice.
This is just one of many coats that's going on this. And I'm going to kind of come through and go like every which way because we're going to be building lots of texture and I don't want a smooth paint finish.
Tell me more, Jamie. Why don't you want it smooth?
Because I want it to be all French country in situation. No, I want to add texture so it can look aged. We're going to be adding multiple colors, paint blending, getting kind of chunky. I don't even know. Once I get started on a piece like this, I kind of have a basic idea, but then I just keep adding layers till I get the look that I want.
It's going to be a fun spring project.
Yeah, that's what it is. Most of this won't even be seen because the Hutch top goes on here.
All right, we're going to let the first coat dry on the base, and then I'm just going to pop the back off of here, and it'll be much easier to paint off. It's going to be hard for me. I don't know if I can get Jamie's crosshatch pattern. I like the nice straight lines personally. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the tops, and then I'm going to flip the whole top of the hutch, and I'll paint the bottom side of the shelves.
Now that the base coat is on, I'm coming back in with DIY's Faded Burlap. It's a really pretty grayish neutral color. It's a little bit more brown than gray. And I'm just gonna kind of bring that in this area. The same pattern that I was painting before. You don't wanna have too much paint on your brush because you wanna be able to move it around. Next again, I'm coming in with a Turquoise Iris Water Girl. This is a mister bottle and it's better than just a regular spray bottle because instead of just squirting at it, it softly mists your piece and it gives you a little bit more control. It'll activate the paint underneath as well as smooth out the paint that's on top and help you create a blended look and move the paint around. You'll notice it's taken some of the paint off, and that's okay because we're wanting to make it an age distress look. When you activate the paint, just know that it will take some off as you move it around. We've been painting furniture in our living room for a really long time. In fact, before Zeb even quit his job, I used to paint furniture with Jack and Redrick going all around me, and that's kind of how we built our business. In our living room, painting furniture, selling furniture. And then we started getting to the point where we were painting tons and tons of white furniture. We were doing a lot of custom work and doing things that didn't really make me super excited. Enter going to DIY bootcamp the first time and meeting Dion Woods at the Turquoise Iris. When I went to Dion's class for the first time, I had only been spraying pieces white, lightly distressing, and they were really pretty, but I hadn't actually used a paintbrush or been artistic in a really long time. She taught me how to use a squirt bottle before we have what we currently have, which is the Water Girl, and she showed me how to blend paint. I actually started crying in class. because I hadn't actually felt a paintbrush in my hand and been artistic in a really long time. I'd just been painting pieces to make ends meet and to grow our family business. Once I took that class, I kind of couldn't figure out where I needed to be. Like, I wanted to bohemian paint everything, but my house was really farmhouse. My design was really kind of French country farmhouse stylish. And so I've tried a bunch of paint finishes, but the paint finish that I'm working on today is something that was inspired by a trip that Zeb and I recently took to France. We saw a lot of aged country finishes that were in some neutral colors with a little bit of gold. And with the help of the water girl, I'm able to achieve the look that we have here today.
So this is kind of stage 2 of what the effect we're going for. And then Jami has been playing a little bit over here, and we'll show you how she got this look. And she's still perfecting this. She's gonna do more.
Well, I started adding the golden ticket, and I'm gonna wait till it's dry, so I'm gonna leave that alone for a little bit. But I do like the areas where I distressed it and brought out, and I'll show you guys how I did that, but how I distressed and brought out like the dark, you can see the white, you can see the faded burlap, you can see the texture, because I'm wanting it to look like an old washed French antique, which is like my goal with every piece. And I'm gonna show you how I did that here in a bit.
You're on.
The next step is exciting because we're adding some color, and you're gonna see me paint and you're gonna say, but Jami, you're covering everything up. Don't worry, we're gonna cover it up. We're gonna let some of it come out, and then we'll have more steps to bring out some of this texture and layers that we already created. I'm using DIY paint and Apothecary, and I'm using a big round brush, and I'm just coming on and adding it to kind of the outer edge of the piece. Don't add too much paint on here, so if it's gooped up anywhere, you're gonna wanna smooth it out. And it's not important that it gets in every nook and cranny. Now that I've got the base on here, I'm gonna go ahead and use the water girl to come in here and soften it. With less brush, almost a dry brush, I'm gonna come in here and do the inside. I want the inside to be more translucent, so I don't wanna come in with a ton of paint. Okay. All right, so now I'm gonna take my finger and I'm gonna come through and I'm gonna pull back some of this paint. And if it's not wet enough, like that's not wet enough, I'm gonna get it wet and I'm gonna pull back those layers. Now there's probably like a million other ways you could do this, but that's how I'm doing it. You can see the original dark finish, then you can see the white finish, and then you can see the faded burlap. And that's why we have so many layers in here. We're gonna let this dry, and then we're gonna come back again and we're gonna sand it and wet distress it and bring out some of those layers. It's okay if there's drips and chunks. If you look at some of the old paint finishes, they have texture every which way. They've got layers of paint chipping off, and that's kind of the effect that we are going for here. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of paint this whole top here. I'm not super concerned about perfection because most of it's covered, and I will only do the distressing detail around the edges.
I've been told to go light, but she's covering it all up with the Apothecary, so I don't know. I don't know how light it actually needs to be. All right, give me my water, girl.
All right, here you go. I already added some golden ticket when it was wet and I didn't like the way that looked. So I'm coming back in now that it's dry. And I'm using the JRB stencil brush just because I feel like it fits the space well. And I'm just coming through and I'm gonna highlight all these details. I'm not worried about perfect coverage. I want it to look like gold gilding that is kind of just worn off over time. And anywhere that I can't get with this big fat JRB stencil brush, this is the number 18. I'm gonna come back with the tiny little baby JRB stencil brush. This is an old one before we had them branded, but this will kind of help me get in all those details. Again, I'm not getting full coverage. I'm trying to make it look worn and old. I want it to run just a little bit, so I'm gonna get it wet. I'm just gonna take this little brush and go down in the crack here. This is what the hardware looks like now. This is the hardware after it's been painted with golden ticket. I like this look better. I feel like it goes with the piece. So I'm just hitting all the high spots of the hardware with golden ticket. It doesn't take very much.
Jami's finishing up with the golden ticket on the top. I've got DIY clear wax, and we're gonna give this a nice coat, and then we'll go back with the other colored waxes, white and maybe some dark wax. Jami can't decide.
I've added some white wax to this piece, and then I'm just coming back with a rag and wiping off the excess wax. 24 hours we'll come back with our big Paint Pixie buffer and we'll buff it after it's sat for 24 hours. So the thing about white wax is that it really picks up all the texture of all the different brush strokes and layers on here and just makes it look that much more aged. And that's the thing about adding the dark, is it might add back some of that texture, but it might also be too much, so I don't know.
Before we wax the top, I'm just gonna take some 220 grit sandpaper, lightly go over it, get kind of a little bit of distressing to the top of this. That way it's not so stark white against all of this fun aged detail we've created. Just wanted to show you the contrast. Jami did a little bit of dark wax here, and we haven't done any over here yet. You can see the difference. So she's just gonna age it just a little bit here and there, not very heavy with it.
So I'm using this more like shading, and I'm taking my same brush that I was putting the golden ticket on. This is the number 18. It works great for just little bits of waxing, and I'm getting a lot of the black off of it. I'm just coming in here and shading. And here's the other thing too, if I had too much wax on my brush, or if I didn't clear wax it, I wouldn't be able to control it like that. But because it's just a little bit of wax on my brush and it's already been clear waxed, I'm able to kind of come in here and shade and wipe. You want to work a little bit at a time and just shade it in and then go to the next space, because if you wait too long, then you can't get it to move the way that you want it to move.
I was really excited that we took the door off because A, that means I don't have to mess around with the glass, and we left this feature in, which also looks really good and kind of gives it that fun detail.
I feel like the whole look is a little bit of Jami, but also a little bit of Franz, and a little bit of help from the water girl from the turquoise iris. If you want to achieve a similar look, make sure you're hitting up JamiRayVintage.com. We have the paint, the water mister, the brushes, everything that you need to achieve this look. Zeb will drop links down in the description box below of the products that we use. Be sure to share this video with your friends that love to paint and are looking for a new fun finish. Give us a thumbs up and subscribe to Jami Ray Vintage for more
DIY.